Welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right in with a quick mental exercise, okay? I want you to imagine we take a modern person, maybe even you, and drop you straight into a hunter-gatherer tribe 40,000 years ago. We're going to completely strip away every single modern comfort. So, no bedrooms, no perfectly curated dating apps, no agonizing over that awkward first text message, and absolutely no romantic candlelit restaurants. Nothing. So, how exactly did your ancestors find partners, attract each other, and, actually fall in love in a world entirely devoid of modern society? Well, they managed to do it successfully enough to keep the human species going for a solid 300,000 years. Let's explore exactly how they pulled that off. Okay, let's dive into this by looking at a pretty stark comparison. On the left side here, we have modern dating. It's often sterile, highly curated, and largely takes place in private or, let's be honest, hiding behind screens. But on the right, we have the raw reality of prehistoric mating. You couldn't just swipe left and disappear. There was absolutely no hiding. Your entire romantic life was based on everyday, continuous observation by every single person around you. It was raw, it was deeply communal, and, as those 300,000 years of survival prove, it was incredibly effective. Section 1. The Zero Privacy Problem. Romance without modern society. To truly wrap our heads around this, we have to realize that for the vast majority of human history, privacy simply did not exist. Before agriculture popped up around 12,000 years ago, humans lived in constantly moving bands, usually consisting of just 20 to 50 people. I want you to really think about that number for a second. 20 to 50. That was your entire social universe. You knew absolutely everyone, and they knew you. Every single argument, every friendship, every messy breakup, and every brand new crush, it all happened right out in the open, literally in front of the whole group. And because of this tiny social universe, dating had a massive built-in reality check. There was absolutely no ghosting. Imagine you embarrassed yourself trying to flirt with someone, or a relationship ended badly. You couldn't just block their number and avoid them. You had to wake up the very next morning, sit around the exact same campfire, and look them right in the eye. Because you couldn't hide behind a screen, attraction wasn't based on a few good photos with a flattering filter. It was based on observing real, continuous behavior. The group watched how you handled stress during a long migration, how you reacted to sudden danger, or, and this was huge, how generous you were when sharing food after a hunt. Section 2. Ancient green flags. What made our ancestors attractive? Now, what's really interesting about this is that nobody really owned much. A prehistoric camp literally contained fewer objects than your kitchen drawer does today. You couldn't hide behind wealth or fancy status symbols. So what actually signaled that you were a good mate? The ancient green flags are pretty fascinating. Humor and storytelling were massively attractive because they built group cohesion. In an environment where starvation was a very real, everyday threat, having a bit of body fat, that was a huge green flag. It signaled health and resilience. Scars weren't imperfections. They were tangible proof of hunting experience and bravery. And scent. Without perfumes or deodorant, a person's natural scent was crucial. Studies actually show our noses subconsciously prefer the scent of partners with different immune systems than our own, which naturally leads to healthier babies. So your nose has literally been playing matchmaker for tens of thousands of years. Moving on to Section 3, the myth versus reality of ancient relationships. Hollywood loves the stereotype of violent cavemen smashing each other with clubs and dragging women around by the hair. But modern anthropological findings from hunter-gatherer societies show us a vastly different reality. Take the Agda people in the Philippines. It's actually the skilled storytellers, not necessarily the strongest hunters, who are highly sought after and end up having more children. Or look at the Hadza in Tanzania. Just try to imagine flirting with someone while you are actively surrounded by 30 of your closest relatives, all holding spears and roasting roots over a fire. It's aggressively communal. And among the Jahani of Southern Africa, women frequently reject men. If a relationship just isn't working out, divorce is common, entirely socially accepted, and surprisingly drama-free. So, the crucial takeaway here is that ancient relationships were actually incredibly flexible. As the research suggests, humans evolved as pair-bonding creatures, but not necessarily lifelong pair-bonding creatures. Some relationships did last for decades, sure, while others ended without causing massive social upheaval. People simply stayed together based on mutual support and survival needs, and they separated when the relationship no longer served them or the group. Section 4. Relationships and cooperative breeding. Now, this flexibility brings us to a massive biological hurdle our ancestors had to deal with, one that completely reshaped how human love works. Just think about this. A newborn horse can literally stand up and walk within hours of being born. A human toddler? Completely helpless for years. Because of this extreme vulnerability, humans developed a system called cooperative breathing. We are essentially the ape that needs a village. Mothers simply could not raise children alone. The entire group had to pitch in. From an evolutionary standpoint, romantic love actually acts as this intense emotional glue, a mechanism designed to keep two totally exhausted parents from abandoning each other while they're trying to carry a screaming toddler across dangerous prehistoric grasslands. And this massive all-hands-on-deck team effort of childcare literally altered our biology. Consider the grandmother hypothesis. Human females are among the only creatures on Earth to experience menopause. Why? Well, grandmothers became so incredibly vital in helping raise grandchildren that living a long time after their own reproductive years actually benefited the survival of the entire species. So your grandmother is basically biologically wired to be here today because prehistoric childcare was a life or death group project. Section 5, the campfire catalyst. So, what actually gave humans the time and space to develop these complex relationships, to bond, and to fall in love? Well, the answer is fire. Imagine a pitch-black prehistoric night. Before fire, humans had to just sit quietly and stay alert in the dark so they wouldn't get eaten by predators. But a crackling campfire? That created a magical circle of absolute safety. Suddenly, you had extra hours every single night. Underneath a completely dark sky filled with stars, listening to the crackling flames and night insects, people finally had time. Time for conversation, for jokes, for music, and yes, for romance. The campfire completely shifted the competition for mates. It moved from daytime physical dominance to nighttime social intelligence. Let's look at how this builds, because this dynamic created a completely different hierarchy of attractiveness. Because of communal living and all that campfire socialization, raw muscle just wasn't enough anymore. You had to first build trust within the band, you had to maintain strong, reliable friendships, and you had to function inside this tight-knit group without causing a bunch of chaos or drama. This is exactly why a deeply knowledgeable 35-year-old hunter-gatherer, someone who knew the complex migration routes, which plants were toxic, and all the seasonal patterns, was respected and desired far more than someone who was just young and physically strong. Knowledge and reliability literally meant survival. Which brings us to Section 6. Ancient software, modern romance. As we sit here swiping on dating apps today, it is so easy to feel completely disconnected from our hunter-gatherer past. But the truth is, our modern romance is still deeply governed by those prehistoric rules. And this brilliantly illustrates that. Look at what we seek out today versus what it meant back then. When we look for confidence today, our brains are actually reading an ancient signal for survival competence. When we're drawn to a great sense of humor, we are subconsciously identifying social intelligence. Kindness? That tells our prehistoric brain that this person is going to be a reliable co-parent. Even something like jealousy is deeply rooted in the ancient fear of losing a massive survival investment. Underneath our smartphones and our megacities, we are all basically still running ancient survival software. And, perhaps the most beautiful realization in all of this is that these ancestors of ours weren't just calculating survival machines. They were emotional beings, just like us. Archaeologists have literally unearthed ancient graves, tens of thousands of years old, where humans were laid to rest, physically holding each other. And surrounding these bodies, they found the microscopic pollen of carefully placed flowers. That means they loved deeply. They felt profound heartbreak, they grieved, and they took the time and care to mourn the loss of their partners. They flirted, they got rejected, and they probably lay awake staring at the ceiling of a cave, wondering if someone liked them back. So I want to leave you with this question. When you search for connection today, in our loud, chaotic modern world, can you feel your ancient instincts guiding you? Because whether it's by the crackling light of a prehistoric campfire or the modern glow of a smartphone screen, the human story remains exactly the same. We're all just people searching for connection in the dark. Thanks for exploring this with me.